Dragon Ball Super is finally coming back. And it's time we have that difficult conversation. It's been put off for too long, and we've been kind of having it, but it's time that we fully have it. I'm going to be the one to start it if somebody hasn't already started it. So they announced that the Moro arc is finally being animated after waiting for what felt like literal decades, which is long awaited because it is considered the best arc in Super, which honestly I agree with. You know, I think it's the first arc I'd say that really felt fresh and new since probably the God of Destruction arc or the Battle of Gods movie. It didn't feel like they were just doing some form of an arc that was done in Z, but with a fresh paint for Super, you know, in some way, shape, or form. Looking at you, future Trunks. So, you know, what could be wrong with this? Alongside this announcement, a little more something fell under the radar that they didn't really push as much, you know? They also announced that they will essentially be remastering or reanimating the God of Destruction arc. Again, they're doing it again, you know, this fall. It's coming out this fall. So to this, I want to ask the question, why? Why are we doing this again? Why are they reanimating or remastering again the God of Destruction arc? Why are we basically doing a Kai version of Super 10 years after the anime just came out? So in this video, I want to talk about first, you know, about how the anime was handled, and then I want to address the handling of the characters within the story of Super. So, you know, as usual, thank you guys so much for the support. You know, I really do hope you enjoyed the video. Without further ado, let's get it done. So the Dragon Ball Super anime coming back in 2015 was one of the biggest things in the anime sphere at the time. And it makes sense. Dragon Ball is the biggest anime in the world at any point that it's airing. And to you One Piece niggas, I love One Piece. I read One Piece weekly. I don't watch One Piece weekly. I read it weekly. Just to tell you, I'm that tapped in. So argue with your mama about it, not me. Anytime Dragon Ball is airing, that's top dollar right there, you know? So at the time the anime began airing, there was still no new content from the manga at the time. So there was no new story to tell, really. In fact, the manga had only started coming out 1 month before the anime premiered. So it was a similar situation to the Boruto anime, and we all kind of know how that ended. And you know, not to say the Dragon Ball anime was handled to the same degree, because Kishimoto allegedly did just go to the offices himself and tell them like, yo, stop airing that. You're dirtying the name of my good story. So apparently, I'm not sure how true that is, right? But it sucked. The Dragon Ball Super anime sucked, and a lot of people can agree with me on that, because I do remember tuning into those first few episodes expecting something new and fresh, but what did I get? Essentially a half-baked retelling of the Battle of Gods movie, now dubbed the God of Destruction arc for the Super anime. A story that was told in a more concise and better way was being dragged over the course of 15 episodes with even worse animation. I don't remember if you guys remember that whole animation debacle when I'm looking at you, Super Saiyan 3 Goku versus Beerus on King Kai's planet. That shit was fucking atrocious, especially for the beginning parts of a Dragon Ball anime. That's so crazy to think about. So there's no real reason to go and watch the anime retelling when I could just go and watch the movie. It's more concise, it gets the story across better, and the animation is gonna hold up. It's just overall better in every single way possible. Now, people have been very vocal about the Super anime sucking, as I said previously, especially compared to its manga counterpart, specifically in terms of storytelling. The art in the manga is fantastic, but we're gonna talk about storytelling. You know, this is something that I do want to address because the manga does itself also retell movie arcs, which I don't like either, but I'm more forgiving of it because it at least adds on to the story. You know, before we got into the superhero portion of the manga, they did like a little side story with Goten and Trunks. And even in other, well, I can't really speak on Battle of Gods and Resurrection F part because I didn't read those, but I do know that for the superhero retelling of the movie, they kind of they skipped over Broly, which I'm very thankful that they did that. Oh my god, they skipped over Broly, which I guess they couldn't have skipped over superhero because they wouldn't have done anything, because I don't think Toyotaro was ready to write a new arc yet. He's probably ready now, but we don't even know. That also kind of sucks that the manga there's no news on the manga. Like, where can you please get back on that, Toyotaro, please? I know the next arc is probably gonna be the last one, but you know, I would like for it to come out. I'd love to see the Black Frieza stuff. But you know, back on topic of the anime, as I've stated at the beginning of the video, or I've asked, why are we retelling the Battle of Gods movie again for essentially a fourth time, which all the times have been the original movie, then the manga, then the anime, and now the anime again? Like, what is the point? And honestly, I looked at the trailer and there were scenes that I was wondering, I was like, are they just re-airing the anime up until the Moro arc? Or like until they're ready for that? Because I'm not gonna lie to you, I looked at that trailer and I was like, this animation doesn't look that different, doesn't look much better. Like I was trying to nitpick throughout it, right? Which I don't like doing, but I would want to look through to see if there is any difference, because I remember I heard that they're remastering Super, but that was just a rumor at the time. And then I did watch that reveal trailer and I saw nothing about it, so I was just like, oh, they're probably just re-airing the anime up until the Moro arc, which would make sense to some degree, you know? And listen, Toei reanimating the Fishman Island arc of One Piece made sense. They butchered that terribly in terms of pacing and animation, so I get it. But redoing an anime that released 10 years ago because you fucked it up so bad due to your own greed for the first time is just not a good look. In fact, it does nothing but make you look even greedier, because they aren't gonna just stop at Battle of Gods or the God of Destruction arc with this. They're gonna do the Resurrection F, then they're gonna do Universe 6, they're gonna do Future Trunks, and then they're gonna do the Universal Survival Saga again, which that one more than anything doesn't need to be reanimated. There's so many good scenes in there, but there's some terrible ass scenes in there. They're definitely gonna do it though. And you know, it's such an obvious cash grab to me. And I understand the series is only going on because it makes them money. You know, it's capitalism. Things got to make money for them to come out. You know, it's not about the art anymore. And I don't want to be that guy who's talking negative, especially after such good news was shared yesterday. I've been waiting on new Dragon Ball content for literal years. You know, when the Super anime stopped, I started reading the Dragon Ball manga, and it was good. It was fantastic. The storytelling was good. It was so much better than the actual anime. And I even considered going back and reading the Universe Survival arc from the perspective of the manga, because apparently the power scaling and just the way that the characters are handled there are even better than how they do it in the anime. You know, but imagine if they announced the Moro arc, and instead of just giving us a coming soon, you know, it's coming later this year or 2027. You know, instead of allocating manpower and honestly just wasting time to give us something no one asked for, by the way. Nobody was asking you if you're gonna retell an arc in the Dragon Ball Super story or something like Battle of Gods. There's a movie, Resurrection. You could have done was it Battle of Gods, Resurrection F, and I think it was Future Trunks after that. You could have done that. I don't know. And I don't know if you guys remember, but the original Super anime aired for 3 years, so likely it's going to be an entire 3 years before we get to the Moro arc if they follow what I think they're going to do and what everyone else thinks that they're going to do, because it just makes sense. People are going to, I guess, watch it and it'll make money. I don't see them finishing the Moro arc and then being like, all right, we need to get this out now. Like, I see them being like, all right, so we finished the Moro arc, we're retelling this, so I think we can keep doing that. And then when the Universe Survival arc ends, shit, oh my god, they might even do Superhero and Broly. Holy god, oh my god, I forgot about that. They might do Broly and Superhero. Wow, this is even worse than I thought. I really don't want to be this guy, but they really might do that. Wow, okay, this has really changed up the perspective of this video. Anyways, but you know, before we end the video, I do want to address some things within Super itself, which is just the gross mischaracterization problem throughout the Super anime of characters like Goku that people talk about all the time. So let's get to it. So before we dive into it, I do want to point out that I won't be addressing the transformation problem because I made an entire video about it. Really good video, link in the description. I posted it probably like 3 or 4 videos ago. It's not that old. So this is a common complaint that I know a lot of people have with the series, and I know it gets annoying when people keep talking about it, but there's a reason why people keep talking about it. It's egregious, you know? The way Goku was handled in Super from a character standpoint was just horrible. It was annoying, because what do you mean that he's never kissed Chi-Chi or even knew what kissing was, which just implies that Goku probably doesn't even know what sex is. You know, I know that Goku has an innocent or carefree personality, but he's a grown man in his 50s and he had 2 kids with Chi-Chi. He married her. You're telling me he doesn't know what kissing is? You're telling me that Vegeta and Bulma kissing is such a foreign concept to Goku? Like, that just never made sense to me. And, you know, by the time Dragon Ball Z came around, Goku was becoming more mature. You know, he's becoming more and more mature compared to the OG series itself, which makes sense because he was a child in the OG series and he's growing up and becoming a man, which I know a lot of people might not know due to the fact that there's an online discussion with people talking about how Z is different from the OG series, which is honestly just such a stupid that's such a stupid discussion. That's like you saying you don't need to watch Naruto before Shippuden. It just doesn't make sense. I literally saw somebody say that. They're like, yeah, you don't need to watch OG Dragon Ball before you watch Dragon Ball Z. What? Like, if you want the full context of the story and everything that's going on, you need to watch it from the beginning. What do you mean you can just skip OG and go to Z? Like, I get that Z is where we get all the hype moments and aura, but Z is more than that, you know? And honestly, now that we're on that, you know, I said I wanted to talk about in the mischaracterization, but no, I'm gonna move over to that. I want to address what they should have done if they wanted to retell a Dragon Ball story, because they could have retold OG Dragon Ball. If you wanted to do that, you know, we have been teased with it during the superhero movie, and lots of people were asking for it because it looked beautiful in the superhero movie. It was the only animated, like, 2D animated part of the superhero movie. It was fantastic. I don't know if I'm gonna have it up on screen, but that shit looked fucking good. I would eat that shit up in that modern day art style. You know, there are a whole 2 to 3 generations of people who have never seen the OG Dragon Ball anime in their entire life, and they've just lost respect for it. My generation included. You know, I'm 24. I was born in 01. And the OG Dragon Ball anime ended in 89, so it was what, 12 years before I was born? So it's a crazy concept. You know, a modern day retelling of OG Dragon Ball with today's animation would be so good for Dragon Ball's PR, in my opinion. But the thing is, people think that Dragon Ball storytelling is bad because all people ever talk about is its transformations and hype moments. You know, people think we're the OG solo leveling fans. Like, that's such a crazy thing to say. People think that we're the OG solo leveling fans, bro. And I want to disagree with them so much, but I can't, because genuinely all the Dragon Ball fans talk about is hype moments and transformations. You know, there's a joke, an endlessly running joke that Dragon Ball fans can't read. That's an anime character. That's an anime fan thing. No, that's a people thing. People can't read. Let's call a spade a spade. People can't read. You know, but there's a reason that Dragon Ball inspired people like Oda, you know, Eiichiro Oda and Masashi Kishimoto to write their stories. You know, look at One Piece. They do sagas all the time. Dragon Ball was doing sagas long before One Piece was even a thing. You know, I'm gonna just refer to Z for people out there because you probably don't know the other ones, but there's the Saiyan saga, the Frieza saga, the Cell saga, the Android saga. Yeah, I know the Android saga comes before. The Majin Buu saga. Like, you know, there's just so many sagas within, there's arcs within the sagas that not Kishimoto, Toriyama was doing that long before One Piece was doing sagas. I'm not saying Toriyama is this masterful storyteller. You know, we have heard time and time again that his editors have come in and changed things and told him things, and that makes the story better. You know, having somebody there to check up on you and check in on you is so good because it's a collaborative effort. It's a collaborative work. But Dragon Ball itself does come from Toriyama's brain. The structure of Dragon Ball, the structure and the storytelling was pretty much entirely Toriyama. You know, his editors again came in and made tweaks here and there, some bigger than others, because, you know, there's the whole Cell thing, which I really do appreciate, the whole Android to Cell thing and making Cell achieve, like, transform, stuff like that. I love that. But, you know, the anime and manga were going crazy before they started the whole changing hair color thing. You know, sure, Dragon Ball is the one who first started the proper idea and popularized the idea of transformation in anime. They're not the first to do it, but they popularized the way it's done, you know? And there's so much that's inspired from it. And I think people need to see where it all began because the OG Dragon Ball story is just so good. But, you know, Every Dragon Ball video, I arrive back at the same conclusion, and it really sucks because I love this story, you know, and it's that the anime and the manga should have just ended with Z. You know, the property has had highs in the past few years with the Zamasu arc, you know, bringing back Vegito, the Universe Survival Saga, but, you know, for the most part, again, it was just when Vegito came back with the Zamasu arc, and then Ultra Instinct in the Universe Survival Saga, or arc. I don't know if it's a saga or arc, I can't remember. But honestly, that does sound like it should be a saga. But yeah, I mean, even looking at that, like characters like Jiren, bro, Jiren is such, I don't like Jiren. I never liked Jiren. He's such a basic design to me. He's just big buff alien dude. I don't understand people like Jiren. His character's boring. There's nothing interesting about him. Not compare him to people, bro, even just like fodder villains from Z, not fodder, but like lower tier villains from Z were more interesting. Raditz had a connection to Goku, that's his brother. Vegeta and Nappa, some of the last remaining Saiyans, they come to Earth, they have a reason to be there. And then we move on to we get to Namek, Frieza's lackeys, the Ginyu Force. Those guys were cool, they were memorable, the designs were all unique. And then we get to Frieza himself, and then after that we get to androids 18-19. They have connections back to the Red Ribbon Army. Android 17-18, again, connections back to the Red Ribbon Army because of Dr. Gero. Then we have Cell, again, connections back to the Red Ribbon Army and Trunks, and a future storyline plotline. Alternate storylines are being told here. And you know, I know it's a tournament arc, but you know, look at King Piccolo. Like, King Piccolo was an interesting character versus just Jiren just shows up and he's just strong, he's just there, I guess. You know, it's just things like that, you know. And one of the most iconic parts of Z, because you know, looking back at Z, they weren't really relying on either nostalgia or transformations because there was no nostalgia or transformations to rely on. You know, one of the most iconic parts of Z was the first time Goku and Piccolo went against Raditz, you know, the first fight that they had. And then you take a look at the Z fighters versus the Saiyans, there's so many iconic things from that. The Yamcha meme from that is iconic by itself. It's just amazing. And back on the Raditz thing, there's the don't touch my daddy thing from Gohan. That's an iconic scene too. Like, that is what I'm trying to get across. And you know, Goku versus Vegeta, like, there no trans, I mean, Vegeta did go grade 8, but whatever, that's like cool. That's again hinting, that's just still following the threads of OG Dragon Ball, the fact that Saiyans can turn into grade apes. And then there's just the fighting pose, the stance, that's just an iconic thing from the both of them. The clash with the I think it was ×5 Kaioken Kamehameha, and then Vegeta with the Gallic gun. Like there's just so much iconic things going on in OG Dragon Ball, well, not OG, in Dragon Ball Z, without them relying on some hype thing, bro. Like, I know those are hype moments, but those are just essentially paying off storytelling. That's what it's doing. It's that fight between Goku and Vegeta is the buildup of the entire Saiyan saga, right? That final fight between them, the both of them. There's the idea of a low-class warrior surpassing a upper echelon warrior who was born and bred to be strong, be a fighter, and then this low-class warrior comes in here and fights him, you know. And all of these fights had iconic moments before the introduction of Super Saiyan. You know, Dragon Ball Super has heavily, and honestly, I'll say overly, relied on nostalgia from the original series. You know, the first arc that Super used to finally start establishing itself was the Moro arc, so I definitely think it should have taken more precedent over anything and everything else in terms of the Dragon Ball Super anime. There's no reason why we need to be retelling the Battle of God story again for a fourth time, when the first time you did it over 10 years ago now, 13 years ago now, you did it right. There's no reason to be doing this again. But that's the video. You know, I know this became more of a rant than anything towards the end of it, and I'm kind of sorry for that. This is just how I feel, but I am still trying to hit 1,000 subscribers. So please, if you enjoyed the video, you know, please consider subscribing, leaving a like, and if you agree or disagree, you know, let me hear them down in the comments. I respond to every single comment. You can go through and look through all the videos. I respond to every single comment. But as always, I love you guys, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.